On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're throwing the trade hacky sack around. Sit back, relax, and join me as we throw around a crazy trade. All that coming up and more on Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Adam Danker. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Locked On Lightning. Just a reminder that this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. On this episode, we're talking about the crazy trade that I tweeted this morning at 4 o'clock. We're breaking it all down. The logistics. Is this something that could actually happen? We're talking about Calgary's needs and the best possible outcome. Before we dive into all that, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube, so go ahead, subscribe to the channel. Love hearing from all of you. Drop a comment below. I know that there's going to get a ton. There's going to be a ton of feedback on this, which I hope there is. I mean, not so much on Twitter, because I will admit my Twitter account's dry as hell. So I would imagine we're probably going to get a lot more feedback on the comment below. So go ahead and drop it. I want to hear how you feel about this. And I had a little bit of a idea as I was prepping for this, but I will drop that idea as maybe a little bit of a tweak towards the end of this segment. So a little bit of backstory for those of you who don't follow me on Twitter. I tweeted this morning because after my conversation with the guys from Locked On Avalanche, they were asking about needs and all that stuff. And if you haven't tuned into that episode, go ahead. That was a great crossover. Every time the three of us get together, it's phenomenal. I think we got something like 40 minutes of footage, which is awesome. So go ahead, tune into that. But, you know, they were asking me, what are the realistic trade outcomes, or, you know, more so our wish list. And if you've been listening or following the podcast for at least the last week or so, you know, I've been very high on Noah Hanifin from the Calgary Flames, a defenseman who's still very much in the prime of his career, obviously, still on the younger side, of course. And the Flames are a team that are clearly, or have been, rumored over the last couple of weeks that they are going to be sellers at the deadline. Right now they sit 3 points out of that last wild card spot in the West. It's not working out for them. There's been tons of rumors flying around that they're going to trade their goaltender at some point, Jacob Markstrom, but obviously the Lightning aren't in the market for a goaltender. We need a defenseman now, especially with Mikhail Sergachev out of the picture for the foreseeable future. So the Calgary Flames, a team that looks like they're probably going to go through a rebuild, and it will be a short rebuild, people, because I assure you this team has, or will have at least at some point, if especially the trade that I'm about to mention does go through, the Calgary Flames are going to have 1 billion draft picks over the next couple of years if this were to happen. So this morning when I woke up, when I was getting ready for my day, a little idea struck me, and then I dove deeper, and thanks to our friends over at Cap Friendly, I was able to simulate a trade, and I did it in the way that money works for both sides. I think, maybe I'm being a little biased, and we'll dive into Calgary's needs later on, but I dove into a trade and I tweeted it out, and this is what a hypothetical trade between the Calgary Flames and the Tampa Bay Lightning would be if I were GM and was able to get this deal done. So Lightning trade Alex Barré-Boulet, Tyler Mott, Brent Seabrook's contract, a 2024 7th-round pick that they got from Chicago, a 2025 second-round pick, and a 2026 first-round pick to Calgary. In return, they get Noah Hanifin and Blake Coleman. And with 15% of Coleman's contract retained by the Flames. Now, this does leave the Flames with two very good players. The Lightning get back Blake Coleman, who we all love and know, and you could throw him on that third line, as well as, and then, Tanner Jeannot is going down to, if he isn't already, but you could definitely now at that time kind of throw him down. But I mean, really, you put Coleman on that third line. Mott's gone. When Jeannot comes back, he goes down to the fourth line to replace Boulay, his spot, and he plays alongside Glendening and Shafi. And that works out well in the lineup. Coleman goes right back to his old spot where he used to be, on a great line with Esamont and Sherry. I think that, though, in that scenario, I don't know. I don't know about this. I think that we could also probably do Stamkos to the third line. You throw Paul or Hagel up to that left winger position. Paul might be a little bit out of position there on that wing, but you definitely could throw Hagel up there, and then you put Coleman on that second line. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities when you bring him in, but obviously the big dog, because really it's funny when I go back and think about it. Coleman, who I think a lot of Lightning fans would love to have back, and really, I mean, we all know was such a huge part of that Stanley Cup winning team, is really a throw-in in this game. And I think at the end of the day, though, obviously the big fish in this is Noah Hanifin. Now, what happens with Hanifin is that I think you could throw him on that second line with Chernak. Fleury goes down to that third line, and then you kind of just do kind of a defensive combination by association, whether you put Martinson, Lilleberg, and Fleury together, or you put Fleury and Perbix together. Honestly, I wish there was some sort of scenario where we could maybe throw Perbix. I mean, we could also put Perbix in that trade, but I don't think that, Calgary would be. I think really from Calgary's point of view, I think they mostly want draft picks, so they could just draft and get this team, or get really this team back to winning ways in the coming years. But yeah, this is a trade where also I will include in that, I did include in that, was that the Lightning would, after that trade, have $73,000 to play with afterwards. So there's that as well. It's really, a deal that I feel. I mean, I wish I had that in with Julian Brees-Boss. I could just text him this and be like, what do you think? Is this something that we could do? Because I would love to hear the feedback from an NHL GM about this. But I think this is a trade that, the more I think about it, I did tweet this out this morning, but I do firmly believe that the more and more you look at it from a practical side, especially now that, the Flames are kind of starting to drift backwards in the standings, and it looks like, and I will say, though, it also depends on the Flames. We're still in February. We still have about a little bit under a month till the trade deadline. The Flames could say, why don't we hold on to pieces we have now, see if we could inch closer to those wildcard spots, because they're not going to get into those third division spots. That's just something that's not going to happen. But it's a trade that leaves both teams out of the red. I think it's going to suck for them because they're giving away a guy that they signed years ago. And, it's going to be a little tricky possibly for the Lightning next year in terms of trying to make that money work. But I think that, you get back Coleman, you have him on the books for 3 more years. You let Perbix go. Barré-Boulet is gone. You shore up your second line. You have 2 solid lines now, because I'm perfectly fine with having Radish on that first with Hedman. And then you got a solid top 6. Your fourth line's a little weird. I think that, really at the end of the day, in the offseason. I don't know how we feel about that last winger spot on that fourth line. But you have Janelle Glendening and insert solid depth player. I think that's works out for everyone. And plus, Stamkos potentially leaves, then that opens up a ton of space to go out there and get someone else of quality that is a little on the younger side. At the same time as well, you look at Hanifin. He's a UFA after this year. The guy's 27 years old. And we all, and I'm sure there's some people saying, what about these no trade clauses? These guys, if they have a chance to go somewhere and win, especially if they're aware that Calgary's not going to do anything this year, especially like I said at the top of the show, Calgary has more draft picks. They almost have as many draft picks, I think, than as they do wins over the next 3 years. That's how much they have. And I think that Hanifin, guy like that, a guy like Coleman who also knows that, what's potentially waiting for him in, that's the only other thing with Coleman too, is that he's a little on the older side. By the time his contract ends, he will be 34, 30, 35 years old. Off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure when his birthday is, but the fact of the matter is that you're setting yourself up not only to win this year potentially with those two guys, but you're also setting yourself up to potentially build at the same time, because you have Coleman. He's a little on the older side, but he's still effective. He's playing very well this year. His numbers right now are as stated. He's got 21 goals, 43 points. The guy's playing phenomenal right now, and he's averaging a little under a shade of 17 and a half minutes per game. Everything that you would have expected him to be, even when he left Tampa Bay. So I think that really that's the way, even if it's not this exact trade, which I think that, at the end of the day, I think I'm a genius the more I think about it with this trade. Obviously, what it comes down to is, is Calgary willing to play ball? And is Julian Brees-Boss aware that not only can he set his team up to win this year, because I guarantee I will put money on it that if a trade like this of this manner, if you get those two guys from Calgary, and you could also, I think in my opinion, you could sub out Coleman for Sharon Govich, who I loved when he was in New Jersey. I loved watching that guy play. Plus you're getting a quality center. If you get a guy like that, and, because you could put Sharon Govich on the first line with Point and Kucherov, especially if Stamkos is gone after this year. It also, other than the emotional aspect of that, it also allows yourself to, the him going away part, Stamkos going somewhere else part, isn't that much painful when it comes to what quality of players you're getting in return. So let me know in the comments below what you think about that. We're going to continue to talk about this because this is something that I think that every day that the Lightning continue to win, they continue to climb up in the standings, and every day that Calgary continues to sink lower and lower, this is a potential. This is something that could relatively happen on the March 8th deadline. So let me know in the comments below what you're thinking about that. So coming up in just a little bit, we're going to talk about Calgary's needs realistically. I'm going to switch GM hats and go from being Tampa Bay's GM to Calgary's GM in just a bit. First, we're going to talk about one of our sponsors, and that is our friends over at Camino Consulting. How would you like to get to know someone better in an hour than you would in a year? Understanding one another prevents small misunderstandings from becoming big ongoing fights. After providing more than 20 years of service to small and mid-sized businesses, helping management groups navigate conflict and onboarding new employees, Camino is offering a digital seminar for families and couples. Did your Valentine's gift of tickets to the game not go over as well as you'd hoped? Well, get the couples and family online seminar for 25% off for the month of February using the discount code LOCKEDON. Again, that's the discount code LOCKEDON for 25% off. off the rest of the month at www.caminoconsulting.ca or mention Locked On when reaching out for a business seminar and receive the first 5 profiles free. So as always, I want to thank all of you for tuning in to this episode of Locked On Lightning. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube. So comment below this video, tune into the channel, subscribe, drop a comment, thumbs up. I want to know how you're all feeling about just this team in general and, the possibility of a trade, because that is something that is going to happen sooner, hopefully, rather than later. I think that hopefully, maybe this is wishful thinking, I'm hoping that Julian Brisebois has learned his lesson from last year, not to wait till the last minute. It's kind of like how when we were in school, you wait till the last minute to do your work, your homework or whatever, or study. You're not going to do as well. And that's what happened at the trade deadline. The Lightning waited till the last minute to make a move, and boom, they did not do as well as they hoped at the deadline. So, yeah, we're talking. We just got done talking about Hanifin and Coleman. Coleman possibly making his return back to Tampa Bay with my proposed trade. So let me just refresh your memories in case you forgot. It is Hanifin and Coleman with 15% of Coleman's salary retained by the Flames. And then Alex Barré-Boulet, Tyler Mott, and Brent Seabrook's contract are shipped out to Calgary, never to be seen again, especially Seabrook's contract. And then alongside of that is a 2024 7th-round pick, which the Lightning got from the Chicago Blackhawks, a 25 second-round pick, and a 26 first-round pick. And I know some of you might also say, well, listen, you have been very anti-trading picks. Well, that was when the Lightning were kind of in the cellar, right? It was kind of when we didn't see the team that we're seeing play now. And now it's gone from trying to plug the dam, the flood from the dam, to now putting a few pieces together to get it all on the same trajectory, or the trajectory that we would like this team to go on, and that is not only to the Stanley Cup playoffs, which I think at this point we could safely say that is a very real possibility and most likely will happen. But this is a team that now, especially with the addition of Hanifin and possibly Coleman, that is a different and better team. And Coleman, he's a lot different. He would be a lot different than other guys that you would normally bring in at the deadline. He knows probably all these players on this team for the most part, except for maybe some guys that were added, like the Pauls, and of course. But for the most part, he knows everybody on this team. He knows, everybody's tendencies. He has experience playing with them. So there's that. And so you have a guy who basically is just sliding into a spot. The only thing that really changes is his jersey. So really, Hanifin coming in as young as he is, with him being a UFA next year. And that's the other thing. It's, if he comes in, he doesn't play well at all, which I doubt that will happen. He has a ton of talent. It's just he's been hiding out there in Calgary where really no one's paying attention on the east side or on the east coast of things. I'm sure Western Conference fans are definitely aware of Noah Hanifin. You bring those two guys out here, your team goes from being a third place team on paper to now we could potentially talk about this team reaching higher accomplishments, not only in season. I mean, I don't know if we could go as far. And this is also dependent on the rest of the team. If the team completely, craps the bed in a couple of weeks and is, we're back to square one, that's a whole different ballgame. But this team, if they continue to play the way they play, and you add those two guys and they play the way they're supposed to play, this is a team that could possibly catch up with the Bruins and possibly go back to the Eastern Conference Finals. But like I said, that's all dependent on Calgary. That's all dependent on how desperate Julian Brisebois is, as well as how creative he could get at the deadline. But as for Calgary, like I said, I'm switching GM hats. If I'm the GM of the Calgary Flames and Julian Brees calls me, said, "Listen, let's make a deal." I am foaming at the mouth, excited, because this is a team, from a team that really, well, first of all, if I'm the GM of the Flames, I'm calling it at this point, and that might sound a little biased, but I look at it this way: you look at this team for the Calgary Flames. You have good players. You have a good foundation. This isn't something that is, we're not talking about like a kind of a rebuild that we're seeing from Ottawa or a rebuild that we've seen from Detroit. No, this is something that could be fixed in the next maybe 2 to 3 years, even the next year if you're lucky. Rebuilds don't happen like that in the NHL anymore. They're very fast these days. And, you got to get, like I said, you have a very good base there. You have Jonathan Huberdeau, who, he's been a disappointment since he got traded there. A lot of people thought, him being the reigning MVP, that he was going to be able to slide in and help this team really grow and be better. Well, joke's on Flames fans, unfortunately. Igor Sharangovich, who, like I said, I love this guy. 20 goals, 36 points. He's a center. He's very, very big, plays big, can skate too. A guy that could really do a lot of things, a first-line center. I love that. And then you have, the names that we all know: Nazem Kadri, Michael Backlund, Andrew Mangiapane. And really that's it. And then you have on the back end, I saw a Lightning fan talk about Tanev. And my answer to that, they were saying, what about Tanev? I don't want Chris Tanev. If Hanifin's there and he's available, let's go for him. I'm not, at this point, if you're calling the Flames, and especially if I'm the opposing GM, if I'm the Calgary Flames GM, if someone's calling me about Chris Tanev, that's great. But, I'm looking to take advantage of this. Like I said, I got $1 billion. Well, not $1 billion. That's an understatement. But if you look at this upcoming draft alone, you got 2, 4, 6, 8. You got 8 draft picks, and then the Lightning call you up and they want to give you the Blackhawks 7th. Absolutely, let's go ahead and let's make a deal. Obviously, I'm not going to give up Hanifin and especially Coleman for next to nothing. Just because for the sake of I want to call time of death on the season, I'm calling it because I want to start it early. And as for next year, you do have a good number of UFAs as well on the Calgary side. So that's where this trade would make sense. You're getting money off the books with Coleman, who, like I said, he's 32. He still has a lot of hockey left in him. But at the same time, if I'm the GM, I want to bring a little bit, guys that are maybe like 25. You get a little bit more years out of them. So just looking at the cap friendly, if you want to follow along for the Flames, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got 6 UFAs next year, after this year, really. And I mean, I don't know how many of those you're realistically signing. I mean, those, especially after the year that you have and the draft picks that you have, I would imagine, especially if it's gotten to the point that there's rumors flying around that Jacob Markstrom might not be with this team at the end of the year. And he's very good goaltender. He has his ups and downs like every other goaltender. And if I'm the GM, I'm definitely trading him. And I'm trying to get as much out of that, out of a playoff, a team that is desperate to do well in the playoffs. And there's a good number of teams out there that are really fiending for a goaltender that have the playoff potential, and they just need a goaltender as that last throw in. And we've seen it over the last couple of years. Jonathan Quick in Vegas most recently did a good job out there. Marc-Andre Fleury traded a couple of times over the last couple of years. I believe the last trade he was involved with was Minnesota. So, there's definitely examples there. And why stop at that if I'm the GM of the Flames? Especially if obviously, I'm sure there's been a conversation with Hanifin already, and his agent. Do you want to be back here next year? This is our plan for the next couple of years. Especially if we don't make the playoffs. Is that something you want to be a part of? And if I'm Hanifin, and like I said, maybe I sound a little biased, but if I'm 27-year-old defenseman who's going to be a UFA next year, what better way to drive my value up into unrestricted free agency by helping a team go on a crazy ass playoff run? A team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, where not only you have potential to go on a run, but to also your presence there helps them get back possibly to the Stanley Cup final, and you're a part of that. Teams look at that and they take that into consideration. So, like I said, maybe I'm a little biased because I want Coleman. I want Coleman. I want Hanifin. But that's just where I trying to do my best. And we're going to talk more about that on next week, because I'm going to have Locked On Flames host Jess Belmonto on here. She's going to talk. We're going to talk about, we're going to do basically a recorded trade negotiation. So tune in for that. I believe that episode's probably going to drop on Tuesday, so you definitely want to tune in for that. We'll provide more information as the date comes ever closer. So coming up in just a little bit, we're going to talk about best possible outcome. What does that mean? That means, the realistic possibility that this happens. We'll talk about that to wrap things up in just a little bit. First, I want to wrap things up with our friends over at Gametime. Now, if you've been a listener of this podcast for at least, the last 2 days, I'm a huge fan of the Gametime app. Now, you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. My favorite thing about this is views from your seats. I don't want to go to a game, pay all this money, and be sitting behind some beam. In this day and age, obstructed view is ridiculous thing to have, and you shouldn't have to pay for it by not looking to see where you sit. My favorite thing also is, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, I went to a comedy event. Me and my buddy, we got the tickets real cheap with these killer last minute deals. They really helped us out, and we were right up front, and we got our tickets in a matter of seconds. And you definitely don't want to be sitting there waiting outside your event and still not getting your tickets. That's ridiculous. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So one last time, I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube, so go ahead, subscribe to that channel. And we're wrapping things up, after we talked about, the trade itself, the trade that like I said, I just threw out there on Twitter at 4 a.m., half asleep, eyes bloodshot red from lack of sleep, and had the whole day to just let it stew and let it, evolve. And now we're talking about it. And it's something, like I said, I think that it is very possible this could happen. Now, the Hanifin, yes, the Hanifin part, 100%. I think that he is very high on the Lightning list. He is probably number one because, like I stated, the other player that was being discussed was Philadelphia Flyers defenseman Sean Walker, who, like I said, that feels like a Trojan horse trade. I feel like, or whatever way you want to describe it, because like the Flyers are in the playoff hunt, like they're in the thick of it. Why would they trade a second line defenseman unless they're gonna flip whatever assets they get for him for some other bigger fish, which it opens up a whole can of worms of questions as to why that trade would make sense unless the Flyers, the only possible explanation was the Flyers don't want to make the playoffs, which I don't think that's something that A, they would ever admit, or any franchise would admit, or B, that's just not something that you would do, especially with John Tortorella as your coach. But the Blake Coleman trade, part of that, like I said, that's a little bit of just like sugar on top. That was kind of like a throw-in. In a perfect world, that happens. In this one that we live in, most likely not. That's not going to happen. Blake Coleman's going to be in Calgary, probably for at least the next couple of years, unless something unforeseen happens. He decides he wants out, but I think it would be very irresponsible for Julian Bruce-Boss to call Calgary and talk about Hanifin and not at least inquire about Coleman. Because like I said, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer to bring him in because he knows pretty much all those guys on those lines that he would be playing with. So, and I already figured out a way to make the money work. So why? I want to hear from the man himself. What would be stopping you? So yeah, like I said, likelihood of a Hanifin trade as long as the Lightning make the move to reach out to them or they don't wait too long. I would say the likelihood is probably very much so. I think we could very much see Hanifin in a Lightning jersey by the deadline. Like I said, get this guy in as soon as possible. There's no reason to wait. And that goes for Coleman too. So the Coleman part, I think that's really just a wild card thing. We're just going to have to wait. I mean, if I hope I'm right that happens. If not, if I want to be a little greedy, sub Coleman out. And I know this kind of changes the nature of the deal because that's a little bit of a higher trade chip. I mean, the Lightning would realistically have to give up a lot more for a Sharon Govich Hanifin trade than they would probably for a Coleman Hanifin trade. So let me know in the comments below what you think. What are your best alternatives to this trade? I want to hear them all, and I will discuss them all on the next episode or whatever episode that comes out that we get enough comments that we can talk about, because I want to discuss them all. So drop those below this comment and drop those below this video, and make sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form, and subscribe to the channel. So in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.